I leaned back in my chair, looked around the room and thought, so many beautiful women in the room. Why did Marc Lavaliere choose my wife? Why did she say yes? Why did she leave me? Our children were getting older and more self-sufficient. They won't be home soon, and Linda and I have already discussed what we'd like to do when the kids aren't home. Many months ago, a small part of my mind wondered what the relationship between Linda and I would be like. Of course, I assumed that we would be able to spend more quality time together, becoming closer, and then it hit me like a proverbial ton of bricks. Linda's plans for the future may not include my presence. I felt like a complete fool. That thought evaporated all my sadness and disappointment, leaving me with only my anger. I could tell from the worried looks from those around the table that my facial expression gave them the impression that my head was about to explode, or that I was about to do something very, very stupid. Dee asked nervously, "Are you okay, Jim?" 4 beautiful young women sat in a booth at the other end of the dance floor. I could see them right over Dee's shoulder. Why didn't Marc Lavaliere choose one of them? I watched the 4 ladies for a moment. Then I started laughing, very loud. Everyone at the table looked scared by my laughter. I laughed so hard that people were looking at our table. I had tears streaming down my face. When my laughter finally died down, I wiped away my tears and gave everyone a big smile. I realized that my life had just changed dramatically. I was no longer in a monogamous relationship. I no longer had to worry about my wife's feelings because my wife no longer cared about mine. Everyone stared at me. I smiled at Dee, took the wedding ring off my finger and handed it to the amazed Dee. "Tell this to Linda when you see her." "I have things to do." I stood up and threw a 10 on the table. "This is for my drink. Since you encouraged Linda's cheating so much, you can pay for it." When I left the table, my former friends called me. As I left the club, I wondered what I would say to them if they tried to follow me. The only thing I was sure of was that if any of the husbands followed me and did not heed my warning, I would break their nose. As I walked, my thoughts were racing. Linda was going to have selfish fun. I was going to have selfish fun myself. When I arrived at the hotel, I asked the young woman at the front desk if they had any full-size suites available. She told me no, but if I was looking for a bigger room, there would be a honeymoon suite available. She listed many of the amenities available in the room. "I will take him. We will not be able to rent out the room you're in now, since it is already late at night. I'll pay for both rooms. My wife will be staying in the original room and I will be staying in the suite." The young woman looked at me strangely for a moment. "I thought you were doing something special for your wife." After she gave me the key card to my new room and directions to get there, I told her, "If my wife asks for the key to my room, don't give it to her. In fact, could you please leave specific instructions so that no one tells my wife that I'm still at the hotel if she asks?" The young girl had a curious look and a smile on her face. "I will make sure that the hotel staff is informed of your request." I went up to my old room and collected my clothes, leaving all of Linda's clothes and personal items in the trash cans. I took the elevator to the top floor. The honeymoon suite was huge, and even had a jacuzzi on the large balcony overlooking the city. I bought an expensive tuxedo with me in case we decided to drink late at one of the more fashionable restaurants nearby. I put on my jacket and headed back to the club, stopping at the ATM to withdraw some cash. When I returned to the club, there was a long line to get in. I approached the doorman as if I owned the place. He asked if he could help me. I smiled at him and gave him a $100 bill. He smiled back, opened the door, and let me in. My former friends were sitting at the table when I entered. I looked around the club, hoping to see what I had seen before. A table at the side of the dance floor with 4 beautiful young women sitting at it. There weren't any men with them, so it must have been some kind of bachelorette party. Perfect for me. I walked through the entire club. Dee noticed me as I walked past the table and tried to wave and call me by name. Everyone at the table turned to look at me. I paid no attention to them as I crossed the hall and casually approached a table with 4 ladies. For what reason are 4 beautiful ladies sitting unaccompanied? All 4 ladies smiled at me. The taller brunette laughed loudly and said, "We're here with our girlfriend. The stupid guy left her for some bitch, and we're cheering her on. The brunette was definitely tipsy. Well, if you don't mind, lady, I'd love to dance with your friend and get a chance to cheer her up. Ace turned to the petite red-haired girl. She smiled and extended her hand to me so that I could help her out of the booth. When we started dancing, I asked her name. Samantha. My name is Jim. How could you date such an idiot that he could let such a beautiful woman go? Because he's an asshole. I laughed and smiled at her. We talked a little while dancing. She went to college to become a nurse and grew up nearby. The song ended and a slower song began. We continued to dance. The music was not so loud, and Samantha asked, "Are you married, Jim?" We broke up. "Was it your wife who danced with Mark Lavalier earlier?" I noticed that she disappeared after that dance. You noticed this, right? Everyone in the club noticed it, Jim. I gave Samantha my best smile. I think you found out that we broke up at the same moment that I found out. Samantha smiled warmly at me, and we danced very close until the end of the song. We had both recently been hurt by someone we cared about, and it felt good to hold each other. When the song ended, we returned to Samantha's table. Samantha said to the others at the table, "I know we agreed that no men would sit with us, but I want Jim to stay with us." Brunette, clearly trying to play with me and Samantha. "I don't know. We agreed that there would be no guys." "How about I buy a couple bottles of champagne to make up for it?" "I don't know. A deal is a deal." Samantha smiled at all three and said, "We saw Mark Lavalier leave with his wife." Three voices at once shouted out, "Not a damn thing!" Three ladies walked around the booth to make room for Samantha and me. Before I could get any names, the blonde next to Samantha asked, "Do you guys have an open marriage?" "Absolutely not." Then another blonde asked, "What did she tell you?" "Nothing. She told me she went to the toilet and snuck out through the back of the club with Mark." I pointed my thumb over my shoulder without turning around. "And all my former asshole friends covered for her." At that moment, the waitress came over. I asked if everyone liked champagne, and everyone smiled. "2 bottles of your most expensive champagne." The girls applauded. Before they could ask me another question, I introduced myself. Their names were Kim, Christy, and Susan. They were all studying to be nurses with Samantha. After the champagne arrived and everyone drank a full glass, Christy, the brunette, asked me what I was going to do with my wife. As far as I understand, we broke up the moment she walked out the door. "Do you have children?" "Unfortunately, yes. A boy and a girl, 15 and 13 years old. But in a few more years, they will be left to their own devices, and I am going to change my wife." Samantha took my arm and said loudly, "To hell with it! You're with me tonight." We all clinked glasses and drank champagne. I told the girls a few jokes. They told me several jokes. We laughed and drank. They danced with some guys and with each other. Samantha remained sitting with me, her arm wrapped around me. Towards the end of the evening, Christy got angry, jumped up from the table, and ran away. We all turned to see where she was going. It turned out that Dee decided to come talk to me, but Christy stopped her near my ex-friend's table. We couldn't hear what was said, but we could see them talking loudly to each other. It ended after Christy started poking Dee's chest multiple times while screaming in Dee's face. Dee cried and sat down again. Christy then lashed out at everyone at the table. All the tables around them laughed at the embarrassment of my former friends. When Christy returned, Kim and Susan high-fived her. Christy drank champagne, smiled at me, and said, "None of these idiots are going anywhere near this table for the rest of the evening." I turned around and looked at their table. They all got up to leave. Jane and Dee were both crying. None of them looked in our direction. "What did you say, Christy?" "I saw this woman gain the courage to come and talk to you. So I pushed her away and let them know what I thought about people who help cheaters. You made a great impression. They clearly wanted me to forgive Linda to ease their conscience. For this, I have to kiss you." Samantha grabbed my head and said, "Oh, no, you shouldn't." And she kissed me hard on the lips, while the other 3 girls encouraged her. After finishing her kiss, Samantha smiled sweetly at me. Kim said, "Get a room, you two." "Well, actually," I said, "I have a suite in a hotel down the block, and you ladies look like you can't drive. If we hurry up, we can still order champagne to our room." After I paid the bar tab, the four of us headed to the hotel. Samantha clung to my arm, and the other three clung to us for support. At the reception, I ordered 4 bottles of champagne for my room. When I told the receptionist that my room was a honeymoon suite, all the ladies started giggling. Rising in the elevator, the 3 ladies began to sing the wedding march. Samantha turned beet red, but clung to me even tighter. As we approached the door of the room, the ladies began to laugh, saying that I should carry the bride over the threshold. Samantha looked at me with her big, beautiful eyes and said, "You don't have to if you don't want to." I pushed the door open, picked Samantha up in my arms, and carried her into the room. When I entered the room, Samantha put her arms around my neck and kissed me deeply. The ladies thought it was funny. They stopped teasing us when Christy noticed the jacuzzi on the balcony. Before I could put Samantha down, all 3 of them had stripped down to their bras and panties and were sitting in the jacuzzi. I put Samantha on the ground. She continued to hold my hand and smile at me. There was a knock on the door. "It was champagne delivered to your room. We brought champagne to the ladies." They joked and giggled. Susan told me I was overdressed and needed to take it all off. I laughed and told them I was keeping Samantha company. They yelled at Samantha to get into the jacuzzi, but she just smiled and pulled me back to the room. We headed to the bridal room, and her friends sang the wedding march from the balcony, laughing hysterically. This morning I woke up with Samantha wrapped around me and 3 other naked ladies lying across a king-sized bed. They must have gotten in here after Samantha and I fell asleep. I slipped out of bed. Samantha watched me. I smiled at her, and she smiled back. "Did you have fun, Jim?" "Yes. Best night of my life." "Any regrets?" "Absolutely none." "Come take a shower with me." Samantha slipped out of bed and dragged me to the bathroom. Wanting to do something I'd never done with Linda, as soon as we were in the shower, I picked Samantha up and sat her on my cock in a standing position. I then pushed her against the wall while she wrapped her legs around my waist. The standing position was grueling, but I had one of the best orgasms of my life. Samantha had come twice before, very loudly. When Samantha and I got out of the shower, we discovered that our loud lovemaking had woken up the ladies. They were hungover but happy, ordering room service and drinking mimosas. Christy said, "I can't wait to get in that shower." You two made it sound like it was the best shower ever. All 3 girls burst out laughing as Samantha and I smiled at each other. After everyone had showered, they left, except for Samantha, who asked if I would give her a ride home. While we were driving, she snuggled up to me. "Jim, I know what your wife did was terrible, but you can still go back to her. If you don't, I'd be glad if we could see each other again." Samantha smiled at me hopefully. "I would be glad of that, Samantha. At the moment, I have no intention of staying with my ex-wife. I really had fun with you. You are what I need right now, so call me if you think we can be together." I kissed Samantha at her door. When she opened the door, Christy was sitting on the couch and smiled at me, waving. As I left, I realized that I was putting off making a decision about what to do with Linda. Returning to the club was a sudden reaction to Linda's infidelity. It didn't solve my problem with Linda, but it made me feel a lot better. When I got home, I took a break and plopped down in a chair in the living room. I didn't bother turning on the light because I was thinking about how to end my broken marriage with the least harm to my children. After a while, I have no idea how long, I heard a car in the driveway, then the key turning in the lock. Jim, I'm home." Her voice sounded exactly the same as it always did when she returned home from running errands. She closed the front door and turned on the light. I turned to look at her. She looked exactly the same. The blue dress still adorned her as in the evening. Dark hair flowed down his back in the same way. Poster shoulders, face, rings on fingers. Everything was exactly the same. It was as if nothing had changed at all. As if she hadn't spent all night and all morning betraying me with an asshole. This is impossible, I thought. There should be some visible difference. Something indicating what she did. At least some shame on her face. There was nothing. It's just me, the same old me as always, she said with a gentle smile. Of course she knew what I was thinking. Nothing has changed here, nothing has changed. My love for you is exactly the same as yesterday. I wish I could say the same. Listening to myself, I realized how dispassionate it sounded. Jim, with the look of a dead gentleman, I stared at Linda, pointing to our bedroom. Do not start. Go take a shower. After trying to say a few words while I kept pointing towards our bedroom, Linda finally left. After her shower, she returned downstairs. Jim, where are my clothes from last night? I think in the hotel room where you left it. You didn't bring my clothes home? No. Did you leave something important there? Linda looked like she was about to say something when she realized her next statement would be something about how inattentive I had been. Instead, she sat in silence as she realized how incredibly stupid that would sound. Why did you do that, Linda? Linda sighed. It was Mark Lavaliera. He is rich and famous and can have any woman he wants. Last night, when he asked me to dance, I felt like the most popular girl in the room. He made me feel special. Linda was still beaming from the night before. As she said this, I saw that she had tuned out our conversation as she fondly recalled moments from the previous night. This was that moment when I realized it was truly over. Linda will always cherish her time with Mark Lavaliere more than any moment with me. I was just an afterthought. Do you love him? No, I don't love him. It was just sex. I love you, Jim. You and I have completely different understandings of how to treat the person you love. I could tell by the surprised look on Linda's face that she felt entitled. I was just being a crybaby because my ego was hurt, which was sad because she crushed my ego purely to feed hers. I came back to you, Jim, because I love you. If he asked you to stay, to become his girlfriend or wife, would you be here now? Linda hesitated, then noticed that I was watching. Of course not, I love you, Jim. You hesitated, Linda. I understand what this look means. You would have been there if he asked. It was just one night. It was just sex. The discussion is over. I have something to think about. Pack some things for you and the children and stay with your parents with them. Whole week. But Jim, the discussion is over. If you really want to urgently solve the problem right now, given the way I'm feeling, you won't get the results you're hoping for. This time there was anger in my voice and look. Linda packed her bag and left. As soon as she was out of sight, I began to implement my plan. I had an epiphany when I saw Linda standing at the entrance in her blue dress, looking completely unchanged. I knew something had to change if I was going to survive this. I called my boss and told him I needed 2 weeks off. I then rented a truck and bought some supplies at the hardware store: wood, drywall, paint, and 2 exterior doors. Once home, I grabbed mine scrap and got to work. First, I removed the front door and the windows surrounding the door. After cutting out a large empty space, I installed the 2 front doors. I placed the old front door on the right side and the new one on the left. I then framed the wall right along the main entrance in the middle of the house and laid down drywall. I was going to do a duplex. I installed a new back door on the left side where the new kitchen would be. The new kitchen would face the living room, just like the other side. The office turned into a 3rd bedroom on the left side, my side. The dining room became the 3rd bedroom on the right side, Linda's side. When I was finished, each side of the duplex matched almost exactly, except for the detached garage on Linda's side. Later, I will build another garage on my side. I changed the lock on the garage and the code on the garage door so that only I have access. I also put up a fence in the backyard, cutting the backyard exactly in half. Now I have a duplex. I called my kids every day and told them I was working around the house. Linda kept asking to talk, but I kept telling her that I was not in the mood to listen to what she had to say. I called Samantha a few days later just to hear her voice and maybe get a chance to spend more time with her. I thought you forgot about me. I cannot stop thinking about you. Are you going to ask me out on a date? No. Stop teasing me. No, I'm really not going to ask you out. I was thinking more about going away for the weekend, just you and me. Really? Yes. Where? The Bahamas sounds tempting. Can you go away this weekend, fly on Thursday and return on Tuesday? Yes, yes, yes! Just take your phone and passport with you. We will buy everything we need there. After we told each other how much fun we were going to have, I had to let her go so I could pay for my plane ticket and book a hotel room. A last-minute trip to the Bahamas didn't come cheap, but what the hell? If Linda divorces me, she gets half our savings and my salary to support the children. I smiled when I realized it was as if Linda was paying for half the trip with Samantha. I transferred our savings account to a bank account in my name only. I also changed my salary so that it was deposited into the account. I didn't think Linda would cancel the credit card, but I wanted to have access to the money just in case. I worked 16 hours a day to get all the walls in place, a little unfinished on my part. On Wednesday, I managed to trim and paint the center wall on Linda's side. I knew that later I would have to separate the electricity, gas, and water. But for now, since Linda's side shared the same gas and electricity, Linda couldn't turn off my side. On Wednesday night, I told Linda to bring the kids home in the morning. On Thursday morning, I locked up my part of the house and sat on a chair out front, waiting for them to arrive. When they arrived and got out of the car, they all stood on the front lawn in a daze. Emma was the first to speak. "Dad, what did you do?" "I turned our house into a duplex. Don't you like it?" All three turned and looked at me like I was an idiot. They stood there with their mouths open. "Don't worry, guys. I finished the right side and moved your things to your new rooms." I showed the kids the left side of the new house, while Linda carried the kids' bags to their rooms. They were dumbfounded. Our short tour ended with us all gathered in the living room on the right side of the house. Tommy: "But Dad, the living room is much smaller." "Don't worry, guys. You will never notice the difference. In fact, I need to install a garage on the other side of the house, and when I do that, I'm going to install a pool with a jacuzzi." This brought smiles to the children. Linda told the children to unpack their bags. She looked at me like she wanted to talk to me, but I followed the kids, helping them put their things away and make sure they had what they needed. After they put their things away, I pulled out some sandwiches I bought at a local deli, and we ate lunch at the kitchen table. Emma asked me, "Dad, what is this all about?" But mostly, she watched Linda's reaction. After spending the last few days with Linda, Emma and Tommy obviously knew something was wrong, and that their mother was avoiding their questions. "Oh, we're getting closer to becoming empty nesters. I realize that things won't stay the same forever. I'm just getting ready. That's all." "Gee, Dad, you could at least discuss this with us first to see how we feel about it." "Well, actually, it was your mom's idea. She said she decided we needed a change and she needed something different." I stared at Linda with a grin on my face. Linda looked amazed. "Mom, why did you make such an important decision and didn't discuss it with us?" asked Emma. Tommy: "Yes, Mom. Don't you care what we think?" Linda looking confused. "It was just a misunderstanding. Your father just misunderstood how I felt." "I don't know, honey. You made your intentions very clear then. In fact, once I saw that you were completely committed to your decision, I knew there was no turning back." Linda looked like she was about to cry and left the room. Tommy asked, "What's wrong with Mom lately? She's been crying about everything." I shrugged and told them they should ask her. Before Emma could ask another question, I told them that I had a trip out of town planned and would be back in a few days. I told them that I would not be contactable during my trip, but that I would call them every evening. I kissed the tops of their heads and quickly headed towards the door. I wondered if they noticed that I didn't say goodbye to their mom, who was in the bedroom.